They built a runway through my cornfield while I was on vacation. Yeah, you heard that right. Bulldozers chewing up 40 years of Anderson family corn, just shredding through my dad's legacy like it was nothing. First thing I saw when I rolled back into Oklahoma: dirt clouds, broken stalks, a BMW shining in the sun, and a woman in a suit so white it could blind you. She glanced at my work clothes like I'd tracked mud across her marble floor. I told her, plain and simple, this was my land. She slid a $5,000 bill at me with that look. People like you should probably relocate somewhere more appropriate, she said, cold as a bank vault. You know that feeling when you realize you're about to make someone regret everything. That's what she handed me. She had no clue, the poor farmer. She tried to bully managed airspace for the entire damn country. So I drive up in my battered old truck, figuring I've got 6 months to enjoy some peace and quiet before heading back to DC. Instead, it's survey stakes everywhere, bulldozers everywhere, and a crowd of contractors buzzing around like they own the place. The woman in the white suit, Patricia Brown, steps out, clipboard in hand, looking at me like I'm hired help or some problem she's got to get rid of. Caretaker, clear this area, important people are coming. Her hands were shaking a little, but her voice tried to hide it. I said, I'm James Anderson. This is my farm. Her face did that thing, like she smelled something bad. Oh, the landowner. She handed me a paper. Aviation community. Development fee. $5,000, due in 2 weeks. It was laughable, the nerve. She tossed out that line about premium communities and premium contributions, with this threat wrapped in. Politeness, move out if you can't pay. But as I looked at her development, huge machines, real money moving, I started making notes. I know what real construction looks like, and I know what needs permits. We're sitting 15 miles from Tulsa International, in Class D controlled airspace. Hope you checked federal airspace regs, I said, mostly to see if she'd blink. She waved it off. Technicalities are for the professionals. Lady, if only you knew. Right there, in front of her, I called my office. Reynolds Anderson here. Open documentation file, Patricia Brown. Unauthorized private airstrip, probable federal violations, recommend full regulatory response. Watching her confidence crack when she heard federal violations, that was a moment I'd pay to see. Again, 3 days later, Patricia calls an emergency HOA meeting at the local community center. Polish slides, charts showing off her premium aviation community. All fake optimism. Most of the folks in those folding chairs were older than her development. Margaret Thompson, retired teacher, stood up with all the authority of someone who's faced down rowdy teenagers for 40 years. You can't just push out seniors because they're on a fixed income. Patricia's reply was straight out of a corporate handbook. Demographics evolve, Mrs. Thompson. Adapt or move. Ruthless. And totally illegal. That evening, Margaret shows up at my door, crying, clutching a $600 fine for her mailbox. The same box that had been there for 15 years. This wasn't random. Patricia was trying to push out anyone who couldn't fight back. It wasn't just arrogance, it was targeted cruelty, and absolutely illegal under federal fair housing laws. I started poking at her. Environmental compliance. EPA doesn't mess around, and she hadn't even considered it. I kept the pressure on, talking federal enforcement action, just loud enough. Now Patricia was getting nervous, her mask of confidence slipping every time I mentioned the EPA or DOT. Meanwhile, Patricia doubled down online, posting pictures of renovation opportunities that were just elderly residents' homes. But the neighborhood fought back. Margaret helped organize a group called Protect Our Neighbors, and the lines were drawn. Patricia was under a different kind of pressure, deadlines from her investors were all marked red, and she started making mistakes. Have you ever seen someone who acts rich but is really one step from losing it all? I did my homework. Turns out, Patricia mortgaged her house, borrowed from some cutthroat investment group, and collected $45,000 in community fees to keep up the appearance. Her investors wanted a working airstrip in 3 months, which meant she started cutting corners. Hired a real aviation consultant, Captain Steve Wilson, to give the project credibility. But Steve took one look at the site and called her out. You're in Class D airspace. No clearances. This is illegal. That was a fun moment. Now, Steve started sniffing around, testing my cover. I played dumb. Said the ground was flat. That's all I cared about. He clearly wasn't buying it, but let it go for now. I stayed vague. Patricia kept pressing about my federal work. Regulatory paperwork. 30 years, nothing fancy. She bought it for the moment. The HOA civil war got ugly. Patricia's posts were openly hostile, calling elderly folks obstacles who needed to be upgraded. Protect Our Neighbors kept receipts, and local news started nosing around when Channel 7 got a hold of the screenshots. Now, the whole state was watching. Patricia's veneer was cracking. She started taking angry phone calls. Her designer wardrobe slipped. The desperation obvious. Investors threatened her daily. Steve, meanwhile, got more suspicious. His professional pride couldn't let a project this illegal slide. Patricia decided to show off, arranging a big public demonstration with investors, politicians, news crews, thinking a successful landing would legitimize everything. I let it play out. Margaret and her crew were ready. News cameras everywhere, elderly residents front and center. Friday morning, blue sky, perfect for flying, and for what was about to go down. Patricia was in her best suit, the event tint gleaming. Everyone on edge. I showed up late, in my dirtiest farm clothes, parking my truck between all those luxury cars. She hated it. Her moment of triumph, about to get stomped. She took the mic, giving her speech about vision and determination overcoming bureaucracy. Right then, a plane circled overhead, ready to land on her unauthorized airstrip. She thought she'd won. I walked up to the podium, took out my wallet, and held up my badge, Federal Aviation Administration, Deputy Director. You could hear a pin drop, except for the gasps and the sound of all those investors realizing just how badly they'd been duped. My name is James Anderson, and I have regulatory authority over every aviation facility in this country. You should have seen Patricia's face drain of color. That's when I called Tulsa Tower on speaker, ordering them to redirect the plane, live, in front of every news camera. All operations denied pending federal review. That moment, pure cinematic. Justice. Patricia froze. Investors went ballistic. Elderly residents cheered. Margaret got her vindication on primetime TV. Patricia's empire crumbled in an instant. Lawsuits, foreclosure. Her reputation ruined, her family falling apart. That airstrip never got built. Instead, the community planted a garden right on the spot, with a sign, "All neighbors welcome. Dignity required." Patricia tried to hide, but her face went viral. Memes, headlines. Her humiliation became legend. Her house foreclosed, her license suspended, job prospects gone. She learned you can't bully the vulnerable, not when you're up against a community with grit and a federal official who just happens to love wearing overalls. The lesson? Never judge by appearances. Never underestimate the folks in the background. And never, ever try to outmaneuver federal law with a bad attitude and a borrowed suit. So, what do you think? Did Patricia get what she deserved? Drop your thoughts below. And let's talk about justice, power, and what really makes a community strong.